rise up. The Dukes are back and now it's time to rise up. The crew is back and now it's time to rise up. The Dukes are back and now it's time to rise up. Rise up, rise up. The Dukes are back and now it's time to rise up. The crew is back and now it's time to rise up. The Dukes are back and now it's time to rise up. Rise up, rise up.
And welcome back to the D's on Fire podcast, episode 2. I'm joined once again with Jordan McCloe, here to talk all things Duquesne sports. Jordan, it wasn't the best week in Duquesne history, but it wasn't a bad week.
It was not. We were pretty spot on with our predictions for the most part.
We said Duquesne would have more wins than expected going into the weekend, and you know what? They beat Michigan at Michigan for men's soccer, and now men's soccer just can't lose. They're 3-0 to start the year. They beat Robert Morris, crosstown rival. They beat Canisius. They had a super long streak of not giving up any goals for a while there. I mean, they might be the team we focus on next weekend.
I think they might be. They run away, and who knows? I'm excited to see how long this streak can last with them. Definitely a nice start to the year.
Women's soccer rebounded from their loss at Penn State before our first podcast by beating Youngstown State at Youngstown State 2-1. Youngstown State being the opponent for the football team going into this weekend, so hopefully they can give the football team some pointers on the places to eat before the game. Volleyball,
yeah.
It was a rough weekend, but they were up against some big name competition. They had UConn, West Virginia, and Loyola, Maryland, and I was at the Penn State Invitational. So, I mean, when you're playing against the best, you're hoping for the best, but that's why they're the big name teams.
Oh, I'm sure they'll bounce back. I'm confident. They look like they're just warming up for the rest of the year. So, definitely confident in them this next tournament.
In football, we'll go into more in depth on the cover that they did at Florida State. Great job getting some fans some money there by the Dukes, and then
me included.
And the upcoming schedule. We're recording on Thursday this week, so we get a sneak peek into the women's soccer against Drexel game in Pittsburgh. They did come up short 0-2 tonight. But everybody's watching the Pitt West Virginia game or Penn State Purdue game tonight.
Yeah.
So it's all right. And then women's volleyball starts up their own tournament here at home against Canisius tomorrow at 11 a.m. And then cross country gets their season started against St. Francis at their invitational in central western PA.
Lots of sports going on.
Yeah. Then I'm looking, men's soccer's next game is against James Madison at home on Tuesday, so we'll find out those results right before our next podcast recording.
Yeah. If I had to make a bet, they're winning 2-0, 3-0. That defense on our men's soccer team out. So yeah. I could definitely see them shutting them out and just starting a new of goalless minutes, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and for women's volleyball, they play Robert Morris on Saturday. I expect them to bounce back with a win there. And then Friday, they play Canisius in the morning. I think they'll bounce back with a win there as well. So only good things ahead for the women's team for volleyball to get back into the swing of things. All right, and let's see. James family news for this week is nothing's changed. Haven't heard anything about Bryce getting any other offers, so still looks great. James dynasty coming to Duquesne, still very strong possibility.
Yeah, I did see LeBron mention that he does how he play with both of his kids. He's looking to which teams has their first round picks. Listen, Bryce, this is the perfect place to come. We'll let you play a year. Get out. We'll take it all the exposure. It'll be great. You'll win some games. This is the bright spot, I'm telling them.
Absolutely. And I guess I guess it's time we should probably go over the Florida State-Duquesne game. I will
Oh,
say that I will say this, TJ Pittinger, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. Very nice guy from the interview he did with you on Friday. Seemed great. Was listened to his podcast after the game. Was very happy that his daughter and him had a great time at the game. Uh, you know, glad Duquesne covered. Glad we got some points out of it. I do have quite a bit of notes after watching the game and a replay of the game. So let me let me get started off with the biggest high note. Obviously, kickoff and punt coverage was great. Special teams unit was fantastic. The first kickoff they picked up at the 10. They made it about 5-6 yards and got tackled. I mean, you can't get asked for better coverage than
no.
that. There was a lot of missed tackles throughout the game, not on special teams, not there. So they had that going for us. The offensive line and run game, I thought we wore down towards the end of the game, and I felt like their offensive line wore us down towards the end of the game too. Our pass defense was actually pretty decent compared to what I was worried about going in. I mean, when you're facing bigger schools, you're worried about speed killing you, speed and strength. Well, I thought our defensive backs did a pretty good job. I thought our wide receivers did a pretty good job at getting open. From a defensive back perspective, number 3, Ryan Webb, he probably had the best game out of anybody on defense. I mean, he had the pick, he had a pass breakup in the end zone in the first quarter before the game started getting out of hand. He was everywhere when it came to tackling in the secondary too. So I was pretty excited to watch him and Joe Mishler. Solid. I understand his stats didn't show it, but I think I counted 4 drops by wide receivers on balls that were placed where only the wide receivers could catch it. He didn't have much time to throw because of, the big guys coming down at him, but he looked solid. I'm pretty excited to watch him play against competition that we're going to be more regularly used to playing moving forward with him at QB.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I was a little upset. I wish they brought in a little earlier and let him throw it just to kind of get some work and see what he like and see if he still had that from last year. But no, I think, like you said, Joe Mel. So I think we have a good shot. I mean, with either quarterback moving forward, they definitely have a good chance this year at bringing home another conference championship.
Yeah, and I will say the Florida State run game was a little creative. It wasn't just running up the middle. They kind of ran away from Big Max in the middle of our line. When they did run to his side, they made sure he was double teamed at all times. So they did respect our defensive line, and they did appear to actually scout our team. So credit to them for that. Linebackers, again, it was just a lot of missed tackles and bad angles. Like, I understand it's hard to tackle guys that are this fast, this strong, this good, but that was the big thing where if there was going to be any threat of us pulling off any sort of upset or scare, we would have had to play perfect football at the start of the game because Florida State didn't come out tired or unfocused. They were ready to go from the start.
Yeah, they were ready to go, which is not what I thought. We might get a little bit in the beginning of the games, like to where they were just a little slow, some scores, and they came out. It looks like they took a lot of notes from last year to when they played another school and they came out firing right away.
Absolutely. Offensively, we showed some creativity moving the ball in the first few drives. Had some outside runs, some misdirection. The passing game, like I said, it was moving the ball pretty well. I was pleasantly surprised by that. We did lead to a missed field goal opportunity, which, I mean, 48 yards and the kick was long enough, so it was a respectable miss. It wasn't short. So we had that in the first half. Abdul Jana was easily the leading receiver in this one. I think he had 50 or 60 receiving yards, the touchdown. I didn't see him drop the ball in any of the plays that I watched. Um, he looked good. He got open pretty regularly our passing game was less than 3 seconds a pass for most of the game. So to get separation against these talented corners and secondary guys was something to see. And then speaking of their talented secondary, Jamie Robinson was number 10. He was their star safety who might be a first round pick next year. He looked fantastic. There was one play in particular where it looked like Joe found a wide open receiver and Jamie came out of nowhere and swatted the ball away for the pass breakup on a third down. I can see why he's considered as talented as he is.
I mean, they're definitely prepared for the rest of the season. They will not see close to this amount of talent, that running game. Florida State had 3 clips, 100 yards. I know we won't see that. So I think this was a nice little warm up and kind of just an eye opener to see kind of where they're at for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Now, I will say Youngstown State's roster might be the second most talented roster we play for the rest of the season, based off of what I've seen. Their running back in particular. There's some draft articles covering him as a possible NFL draft guy, like late round target for teams to look at, Jaleel McLaughlin. So I am a little worried about that matchup based off of what we saw, but I think the defensive line and the linebackers are going to match up a lot better with their offensive line than they did Florida State's. So hopefully that was the difference and not, although, some of those runs by the running backs I have in these notes because I took them live while rewatching. So many missed tackles kept popping up because of how many. I think one of the running backs had like 15 to 18 broken tackles against us, just one of them. So I know a lot of it is their talent, but man, I know the coaching staff had to harp on that this week.
Oh, 100%. I cannot imagine that they did not practice almost all week just in preparation for this running back and for Youngstown State after last week. So
yeah,
I'm sure they're ready to go.
Defensively, it looked like we had 4 to 5 safeties playing with how far back our defensive back started on plays. There's just another note that I picked up. Todd Hill got the first sack of the game, so Duquesne ended up being a tie, 1 sack apiece, but Todd Hill got the first one. And it was a great pressure by Gianni Rizzo. So I just want to shout out those 2 guys. Todd Hill also was the guy who pressured the backup QB into causing the pick. So he had a few good plays on stiff competition. He could have a breakout year this year if he hasn't already broken out.
Oh yeah, I know. I will mention too, because of that interception, I see a lot on Florida State Twitter. They're questioning that they really don't even have a backup quarterback at all now. So at least that was one of the bright spots I saw, that we really kind of into a panic to realize that they don't really have anyone to back up Jordan Davis anymore.
Yeah, and I will say this about their starter, Jordan Travis. I saw one. He looked really good, which I knew going into the game that he was really good. But one play that I saw, it was in the third quarter, he ended up doing like a lead block on the final touchdown run while he was in the game. Like he handed the ball off, turned around, and then threw his shoulder into a defensive player to be the last shove to get the running back into the end zone. That really impressed me there. I don't know if the coaches like that as much, considering the circumstances that he did that in. But yeah, tough guy. I will say, some of the tackles that we hit hard and we hit low. I flinched a little, but they looked fine taking the hits. So.
Oh yeah, that's the little bit of the difference there between D1 AA and D1. It's just some of those guys, the size difference is massive.
Yeah, my 2 other notes that I haven't talked about. The timeout at the end of the first half by Norvell of Florida State with like 6 seconds left on our 4th down, just so that we'd have to punt the ball, was complete bush league. I was furious with him about that. I was furious with them about the 2-point conversion after their first touchdown. I understand you need to get some practice in, but you want to waste a trick play for a 2-point conversion on us instead of keeping that in store for an opponent later on down the road. Makes no sense to me. Just man,
Oh,
stereotypical Yinzer throwing stuff around after watching a game that my pap had a foam brick apparently that they used to have where you could throw it in frustration. I would have been doing that if I had it. Just so mad at that coach.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's fair. I usually you do save those is like you don't show them like this week against LSU. If they're kind of running, you would think that and not put it on film. Like if I'm LSU now, that that's out there. So it was a little that they did show this something like that.
yeah, and the fact that it didn't work makes me think that LSU doesn't have to take it seriously either. So like, it's not like they're wasting any of their time with it because it didn't work against Duquesne. Why would LSU think that it could work against them? But overall, those were the minutia. Overall, couldn't ask for much more. We got a touchdown out of it. We had an interception. We got a sack. Like I said, the punt and kickoff coverage looked great. I felt like speed wise, we weren't as outmatched as I thought we would be going into the game. Um, and really, we just needed to not run the ball up the middle against a bigger team. I know it's not likely that we win on the edge running plays, but it seemed like our big runs were more towards the tackles, which doesn't make much sense, but maybe they had one defensive end who couldn't set the edge well. So it was a good game. It wasn't necessarily competitive, but we covered. We had a
We
great
did cover.
experience, and we went viral with the clip that's
Yeah.
been going all over social media. Um, Hopefully, we'll be able to talk with that player in the next few weeks.
Oh yeah, I was able to convert at least one Florida State fan. I got a Twitter DM for him to take Duquesne on the spread. I was
Based off
instantly
of your
got.
betting knowledge, that you make more money betting on the underdogs and by getting the points.
Yeah,
Um,
I was very shocked when I saw that. I did not realize it was such a big in terms of betting on the underdog for the spread, but I instantly got a DM asking me to find it, and he told me he took it too. So I mean, I'm glad it worked out for Kane.
and I will say, we just it was a push last year against TCU. It was basically a push off the initial line that it came out with on Friday, because I think it was 40 or 39 and a half, and it ended up being 40. Um, Vegas is crazy how accurate they are. It's nuts. There's
Yeah, it's
there's just
gross.
not nearly enough knowledge in the world to create this accurate of a line, and yet they do it every year.
Yeah, and especially with like I said, like it's not just top tier D1, D1 double like FCS, FBS. The way they're able to kind of generate those is, yeah, it's nasty. The house wins most of the time, almost all the time. It's
They
very tough.
they're in business for a reason.
Oh yeah, so I already looking ahead past Youngstown State. I am very curious to see what the line is, especially with us playing them in the past and how Florida State went. So
Yeah, I mean, Youngstown State's definitely had our number in past years. Um, I will say Jim Tressel, no longer officially part of the program. He stepped down as athletic director, so maybe there's a little less shine on Youngstown State's football team. I mean, they've been a pipeline for NFL players from FCS schools. Um, One example is the rookie tight end for the Colts. He was getting first team reps before I think he hurt his knee, and he's likely out for the year. But Ogletree, it was a rookie tight end who looked like he might be the tight end one on an NFL team, and he was at Youngstown State last year. So they do produce NFL guys. Um, so there's talent there. They have
hell
one of
yeah.
the Hooker brothers who transferred from Ohio State. He's now at Youngstown State. We already mentioned the running back that they have, Jaleel McLaughlin. they have guys that you're going to have to worry about. Like I said, I think they're going to be the second hardest team that we play all year. Hawaii, we have them upcoming on the schedule. They got their doors blown off by Vanderbilt. I feel like we can upset Hawaii this year.
Oh yeah, I think against Hawaii, I think that's whatever the spread is on the money line. I'm taking Duquesne. I think that's going to be our second FBS. Like you said, and I think Youngstown State is most likely going to be a harder competition than Hawaii. So,
Yeah,
I mean, it's a good little stretch. I would like to see kind of how our team is over these next couple weeks.
yeah, and I mean, regardless of what happens at Youngstown State, they do have a game against Thomas More at home to open up the home season next weekend. I think that's good to have that bounce back game on the books. Youngstown State, they last beat an FBS school back in 2012 when they knocked off Pitt 31-17.
Oh,
So we have beaten an FBS school more recently than them. They are in what's considered a tougher division of FCS football, where they play North Dakota State, South Dakota State, and all those schools pretty regularly. So they have a higher expectation for what the norm is, I'd say, in their regular schedule. So it's a good test to play them, regardless of whether we play an FBS school or not. We've played Youngstown State pretty regularly throughout the years, and it seems like they're always the toughest competition that we have.
oh yeah. I mean, yeah, they're also just another good test to see where we're at conference wise. You know, we played now kind of dropping down to FCS, but like you said, they play that tough competition every year. So to start off the year too with them to even get a better read is going to be a nice little test. So, but you know, I was confident with them against Florida State, at least cover. I think after watching that, I really still am confident that we have a really good year on our with this team. So,
Yeah, and looking through the game notes and preview for the Youngstown State game, the first thing they mentioned, despite the rainy conditions, the Duquesne Dukes took care of the ball. I will say that was impressive that we didn't fumble the ball, considering how bad the conditions were in Florida State. I mean, the game got set back, what, an hour and a half, 2 hours from the original start time
yeah, oh
because of
yeah.
the conditions, and the rain definitely didn't stop. It was going throughout the game. Um, so not fumbling in particular with how many runs that we had to do. Uh, that's a good sign for the running backs. Mm.
Yeah, I mean that is one thing. I I was getting so excited, and then I saw the rain start pouring down. I'm like, oh man, I was like worried about that. But yeah, the fact that they were to hold on, especially with those that large deeps, kind of just hammering away at them and not to turn the ball over was very nice to see, and a good outlook on the rest of the year with those running backs.
It's interesting to see the wide receiver usage from the Florida State game. I'm wondering if that was um, a physical matchup or what, but I didn't see Isabella come out and flash as much as I expected him to going into the game. Like I mentioned, it seemed pretty clear that Jana was the top receiver last week, and like I said, there was some noticeable drops, but now that I read that note from earlier, it does make sense that there might have been some more drops considering the conditions. Florida State's receivers didn't seem to have as big of an issue with that, but you know that's why they're at the bigger school.
Yeah, I know it was a very big worry from other Florida State fans said on social media that it's not normal for them to have a game like midday around that 5 o'clock in Tallahassee because of the weather. So I don't know if that just kind of helped like Florida State receivers prepare. You know, I'm sure they practice in it. So, but I think this next Youngstown State, this game will definitely give us a better look overall as to where we're at as a team. So definitely a better matchup overall.
Yeah. And former All NEC guard Roman Masick was on the sideline. Now uh, signed with the WWE. He was on the sideline cheering on the Dukes during the game. Saw him take a few pictures and stand on the sidelines throughout. So that's cool to see that he's still repping the Dukes, even though he's building his own brand in a huge entertainment universe. Um, yeah, outside of that, I'm just looking at the notes for the Penguins. I tried doing some research on Youngstown State. I really did. And man, it is tough. They've had a lot of turnover. It seemed like in recent years, a lot of their guys coming into the program were transfers. This is the first year where they haven't had as many transfers, and it's a lot of like incoming freshmen. So it seems
Oh,
like
wow.
it seems like there's a lot of uncertainty about what the team's necessarily going to look like, just who's going to be playing where. Um, at least from what I looked up.
I mean, I'm sure I didn't do as much as research as you did, but I definitely, yeah, I didn't see much either on my end. So I'm curious to see if this is a youngster that we've seen in the past, or who knows, maybe they're building for the future and just getting that next generation up, and who knows, maybe we win this very handily and don't have to worry too much, although I doubt it the way they're coached.
And let's see. I doubt that there's betting odds on this game, or if there are, there probably aren't out yet. Based off of what we discovered last week, it seems like our games are probably going to come out Friday or Saturday for
Yeah,
the
oh
betting
yeah, the day
lines.
of. Real quick while I have it up. Who knows? It's always because what time they play at, let's see. With all the games really going on this upcoming Saturday, there's a million.
Yeah, our game's set at 2, so they probably won't release it until Friday midday or so. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not good enough at lines to even give you a guess, but I'd say Youngstown State's probably the favorite, especially at home. Um, and it, and like I said, this is this is the second toughest team we play all year. I gave in my preseason predictions that we'd be having a one-loss season throughout the regular season, and that it was going to be against Florida State. So I'm still picking the Dukes at whatever line they give, but this was a real coin flip game right here.
Yeah, it'll be very curious to see. This sets the tone for the rest of the season. I think Florida State was just kind of to see where they were at, see how they would compete. But I think Youngstown State is going to set the tone and goes.
Yeah, and I mean, when setting the schedule, you take the big names as much as you can get them, but having the 2 toughest games of your season back to back to start, man, that is draining.
Yeah, it definitely isn't easy. So I was trying to even see if I could find one from last year, but I cannot. Yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see if I know what it's at. If I had a guess, oh man, if they're going off of home, we'll say Duquesne. They're gonna probably have it's like a 5.6 point favorite.
I was gonna say probably 7 point dog for the Dukes this weekend.
That even could too, especially. I mean, it's either they might get a couple points just because they're home, and if not, yeah, it's no more than a touch. That I feel confident saying.
All right, so just to give our quick predictions, Friday morning, while you're listening to this, the Dukes will be playing Canisius in volleyball at home. They'll be winning that game, that match handily. I'll say 3-1. I'll be generous to Canisius there. Cross country in the St. Francis Father BD Invitational in Loretto. Men's and women's are just going to wipe the floor in that one. They're just going to take all the podiums,
Just
first, second,
overall
and third.
dominate.
Yeah. Volleyball versus William and Mary. I think that one will be a 3-2 win for the Dukes. That one will be a little tougher. It'll be 6 p.m. It'll be the prime time game for Friday night. Getting us ready for Friday Night Lights, where you'll be coaching. And
Yeah.
and then Saturday, Youngstown State. Like we said, I think that it'll be around a touchdown difference in the spread. But I think the Dukes will win straight up. It'll be close. I'm going to say 24-20 will be my prediction for that game.
I like that. I'm gonna go 27-21. But I mean, if they put the line out and the Duquesne's are dogs, I will definitely take that no matter what.
And then the weekend games wrap up with Robert Morris in volleyball, where they're sort of the two host teams of the tournament this weekend. That's at 3 p.m. on Saturday. Obviously, we take the Dukes against the crosstown rivals, no question.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, not a chance.
That's a 3-0 prediction. We'll win 3-0 there.
I'm very confident with the ball team. I'm sure, I don't know how many volleyball listeners we have, but I think that was a good stuff, and I think they're just going to come back swinging. They're well coached, so we got some good players. I'm confident with them this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, from our time at school, volleyball program was always a pretty competitive one. I think they were the first A10 champions. I think I remember seeing there during my time at Duquesne, and then women's soccer pulled off an A10 playoff title, and then getting the NCAA berth, and then the women's basketball team obviously making the NCAA tournament during our time there. There's been some programs that have had pretty consistent success. Women's swimming has been another one. So those programs I'm not too worried about. Volleyball, like I said, they'll bounce back.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, they're, like I said, they're ready. They'll get it in order. So I'm confident with them.
And the last game that will happen before our next podcast, men's soccer at Wright State. We obviously are going with the Dukes. I mean, they're undefeated. They can't be stopped.
Yeah, they shut them out. Wow, it's whether it's going to be a 2-0 or 3-0 victory, but they're confident they're going to start that streak again. They only gave that one goal to Robert Morris, so since then they had started, and they're not going to give up a goal here. So,
not officially Duquesne related news, but I did want to say that Coach Dambrot's son Robbie had quite a goal in his match in the soccer league. I think it was USL Cup game for Indianapolis. So it was a 1-0 victory with his one goal being the difference. So it's great effort by the coach's son getting on the board.
Love to hear that.
But that's all we have this week, folks. Just wanted to say thank you again for listening, and we'll be back next week better than ever.
Back and now it's time to rise up.